Sarah Collins pulled her worn raincoat tighter around Emma's carrier, sheltering her sleeping daughter from Seattle's November rain. The awning above provided little protection, as wind drove sheets of water sideways, soaking through her jeans. 14 months of motherhood had taught her many things, but nothing had prepared her for this, standing outside a closed coffee shop at dusk, with nowhere to go. 3 months ago, she'd been teaching 3rd grade, coming home to a small but comfortable apartment. Then Mark cleaned out their accounts and disappeared, leaving nothing but a text. "I can't do this anymore." The cascade of disasters that followed, eviction, job loss, couch surfing until she'd worn out every welcome, led her here, watching rush-hour traffic splash through puddles. Emma stirred, her tiny face scrunching. Sarah checked her watch. Feeding time soon. The baby bag held 1 last bottle, 2 diapers and a change of clothes. The shelter across town had a wait list. Her phone was dead. "Not now, sweet girl," she whispered, gently rocking the carrier. "Just a little longer." Across the street, the gleaming windows of tech startups still blazed with light. Sarah watched young professionals hurry to their cars, remembering when she'd been one of them. Confident, purposeful, future stretching bright ahead. Now at 26, she calculated the walking distance to the nearest public bathroom, while her daughter slept fitfully in rain-splattered carrier. Michael Thorne sat in his parked Tesla, reviewing acquisition numbers on his phone. At 38, he'd built Thorne Technologies from a garage startup into a billion-dollar company. Today's merger would add another 0 to his net worth. He should feel triumphant. Instead, the empty house waiting for him felt like a weight in his chest. The dashboard clock read 6:47 p.m. 3 years ago, exactly this time, he'd been in surgery while doctors tried to save Claire and their unborn daughter after the crash. They couldn't. The penthouse they'd bought for their growing family became a mausoleum of memories he couldn't face. He bought the Lake Washington mansion 6 months later. The space helped, fewer ghosts. But tonight, with rain hammering his windshield and darkness pressing in, the old grief felt fresh as ever. Movement caught his eye. A woman with a baby carrier huddled under a shop awning. Something in her posture, defensive, desperate, made him look twice. The baby stirred, and the woman bent to adjust a thin jacket around the carrier. Her clothes were soaked through. Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd donated millions to various causes, sat on charitable boards, written checks that changed lives. But direct intervention? That wasn't his style. Too messy, too personal. The woman shifted, and streetlight caught her face. Young, pretty despite obvious exhaustion. She checked her watch. Then the darkening sky, fear flashing across her features. 3 years of therapy had taught Michael to recognize pivotal moments, choices that, however small, altered life's trajectory. He thought of Claire, who'd never walked past someone in need, who'd dreamed of the family they'd build together. Before he could second-guess himself, Michael pulled into a parking spot and reached for his umbrella. Some decisions weren't about logic or caution. Sometimes you simply had to open the door and step into the rain. The woman tensed as he approached, pulling the carrier closer. Michael stopped a respectful distance away, rain drumming against his black umbrella. 2 worlds colliding under a darkening Seattle sky. His tailored suit and her worn jeans, his Tesla and her baby carrier, his mansion and her borrowed awning space. Neither could have guessed how this moment would change everything. "I have a house," Michael said, each word carefully chosen. "It's warm, empty, and you're welcome to stay until this weather clears." Sarah took a half step back, years of teaching experience screaming stranger danger. The man's expensive suit and careful distance suggested wealth, but that meant nothing. Sometimes the worst dangers came wrapped in the nicest packages. "That's very kind," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "But we're fine here, just waiting for a friend." The lie felt bitter on her tongue. Emma chose that moment to wake fully, her cry piercing through the sound of rain. Sarah's heart clenched. She recognized that hungry wail. The last bottle wouldn't last the night. The man shifted, and streetlight caught his face. Something in his eyes, pain, understanding, lonely recognition, made Sarah pause. He wasn't looking at them with pity or predatory interest, but with something closer to empathy. "I'm Michael Thorne," he said, reaching slowly into his jacket. He withdrew a business card and his driver's license, placing both on the wet sidewalk before stepping back. "You can Google me. CEO of Thorne Technologies. The house is at 4577 Lake Washington Boulevard. It's yours for the night or longer if you need it. I'll stay somewhere else." Sarah picked up the card, her fingers trembling. The license matched the name. Even through the rain, she could see the holographic security features. Emma's cries grew louder. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Michael glanced at his car, then back at them. Because 3 years ago, someone should have stopped for my wife. Pain flashed across his features. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but it's pouring, your baby's crying, and I have an empty 6-bedroom house 5 minutes from here. Here, he pulled out his keys, detached several from the ring. Front door, security system code is 1224. Garage door opener. Pool house if you want total privacy. Master suites upstairs, but there are 4 guest rooms on the main floor. He set the keys next to a folded $100 bill on a dry spot under the awning. Get some food delivered. There's a Target that delivers diapers 24/7. My housekeeper comes Tuesdays and Thursdays. She's got a separate entrance code. You won't see her unless you want to. Sarah stared at the keys. Emma's cries had shifted to hiccuping sobs. The rain was seeping into her socks. I could be anyone, she said quietly. A thief, an addict. You could be, Michael agreed. And I could be worse than you're imagining. But right now, you're a mother with a crying baby in the rain, and I'm someone with more space than I need. He stepped back further, umbrella tilted against the wind. Take the keys or don't. Call the police to check the address first if you want. I'll be back tomorrow morning with groceries. I'll knock first and wait for you to text this number before entering. He gestured at the business card. Emma let out another cry and Sarah felt her resolve crumbling. One night, a warm bottle, dry clothes for her baby. Thank you, she whispered, bending to pick up the keys. But why trust me? Michael was already turning away, rain glossing his expensive suit. Sometimes, he said quietly, trust isn't about certainty. It's about choosing to believe in people again. He walked back to his car without looking back. Sarah watched the Tesla's taillights disappear into the rain. In her carrier, Emma whimpered. The keys felt impossibly heavy in her hand, a weight of kindness she wasn't sure she deserved, but desperately needed. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone. Dead or not, she could still use it to navigate. Lake Washington Boulevard wasn't far. One night, just one night to be warm and safe. She adjusted Emma's cover one last time and stepped into the rain, keys clutched tight against her chest like a prayer. The security keypad blinked green as Sarah punched in 1224. Emma balanced against her hip. The front door's lock clicked open with a sound that seemed to echo through her bones. For a moment, she stood frozen on the threshold, rain dripping from her hair onto imported tiles. Just checking the address, she'd told the skeptical 911 dispatcher. Yes, Michael Thorne lived there. No disturbance reported. No, they couldn't do anything unless she wanted to file a complaint. She didn't. Sarah stepped inside, fumbling for a light switch. Warm illumination flooded the entryway, revealing a space larger than her old apartment. Marble floors stretched toward a sweeping staircase. Art hung on walls tall enough to house her former classroom twice over. The air smelled of leather and pine. Okay, Emma, she whispered, her voice unnaturally loud in the silence. Let's find the kitchen first. Her wet shoes squeaked against the floor as she followed the hallway. Motion-sensing lights clicked on ahead of her, leading to a kitchen that belonged in a magazine, all gleaming stainless steel and pristine countertops. A note sat on the island. Wi-Fi Thorne Mansion 204, password, Claire 2224 emergency, Michael 206-555-0177, police fire 911, help yourself to anything. Emma squirmed, her cries building again. Sarah found the formula in her bag with shaking hands, grateful she'd saved this last bottle. The kitchen's filtered water ran warm instantly. While the bottle heated, she opened cabinets at random, everything organized with almost military precision. Protein bars, organic coffee, enough food to feed a family, barely touched. Almost ready, sweet girl, she murmured, testing the formula's temperature on her wrist. The marble counter was cool against her hip as she fed Emma, her daughter's blue eyes drifting closed in contentment. Only then did Sarah allow herself to truly look around. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, rain streaked down over a view of Lake Washington. Lightning flickered across the water. Inside, warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. Exhaustion hit her suddenly, nearly buckling her knees. When was the last time she'd really slept? Not the fitful dozing in shelter chairs or on friends' couches, but actual rest. Let's find somewhere to sleep, baby, she whispered to Emma's drowsy form. The nearest guest room had a crib already assembled in the corner, new tags still attached. On the bed lay wrapped packages of diapers, wipes, and baby clothes. A note read, "Wasn't sure of sizes. More tomorrow." Sarah's vision blurred. The kindness felt almost cruel in its completeness, breaking through walls she'd built over months of hardening herself against the world. She changed Emma with trembling hands, marveling at the softness of the new sleeper, the perfect fit of fresh diapers. The crib's mattress was firm, its sheets smelling of fabric softener. Emma didn't stir as Sarah laid her down, already deep in the peaceful sleep of the warm and fed. For a long moment, Sarah just watched her daughter's chest rise and fall, memorizing this moment of security, however brief. A door off the bedroom led to an ensuite bathroom bigger than some apartments she'd viewed. The shower's hot water seemed endless. Sarah stood under the spray until her tears mixed with it, washing away months of fear and exhaustion. Clean towels, new toothbrush still in its package, even a wrapped set of pajamas that somehow fit. Each discovery was another crack in her carefully maintained composure. Back in the bedroom, Sarah curled up on sheets that felt like clouds, watching Emma sleep in the crib's soft glow. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, for the first time in months, they were safe. Just before sleep took her, Sarah noticed something. A photo album on the nightstand, its spine worn with handling. She reached for it without thinking, then stopped. Some doors, once opened, couldn't be closed again. But as rain drummed against the windows, and Emma slept peacefully nearby, Sarah found herself opening the album anyway, turning pages that would reveal the story of the empty house, and the man who'd given them its keys. The first photo showed a wedding. Michael, younger and smiling, stood beside a woman with auburn hair and laughing eyes. Claire, written in elegant script below the image. They held each other like they were sharing a secret, the Seattle skyline sparkling behind them. Sarah turned pages slowly, watching their story unfold. Hiking trips, holiday gatherings, Claire in a garden, hands dirty, grinning at the camera. Michael and Claire painting what looked like a nursery, both splattered with yellow paint. Their joy radiated from each image, making Sarah's chest ache. Then the photos stopped. Newspaper clippings filled the next pages. Tech CEO's wife dies in tragic accident. Pregnant woman killed in hit and run. Driver still at large in fatal crash. Each headline felt like a punch to the gut. The final article showed Michael at a funeral, his face hollow with grief. Sarah closed the album gently, understanding blooming like bruises. The brand new crib, the security codes ending in 1224, December 24th, the date of the accident according to the articles. The way he'd mentioned his wife when offering them shelter. Empty picture hooks lined the hallway when she stepped out to get Emma's bottle warmed. Gaps in dust patterns on shelves suggested recently removed photos. A house stripped of memories, yet unable to forget. In the kitchen, Sarah found more signs of the life interrupted. A cookbook bookmarked to Claire's favorite lemon bars. A coffee mug with world's best mom-to-be pushed to the back of a cabinet. Little ghosts of what should have been. Emma's bottle warmed. Sarah wandered into what must have been Michael's office. Rain streaked down windows overlooking a neglected garden. Papers covered every surface in organized chaos. Work seemed to be his escape. A photo sat face down on his desk. Sarah knew she shouldn't look. This wasn't her life, her grief to witness. But something drew her to the frame, perhaps the same instinct that made her open the album. The photo showed Michael and Claire on a beach, her small baby bump visible. They were looking at each other instead of the camera, Claire's hand resting on her stomach, Michael's covering hers. The joy in their faces was almost unbearable to witness. "It was a girl," a quiet voice said from the doorway. Sarah spun around, nearly dropping Emma's bottle. Michael stood there, soaking wet, his tie loose around his neck. She hadn't heard him come in. "I'm sorry," Sarah stammered. "I shouldn't have. It's okay." Michael stepped into the room, carefully maintaining his distance. "We were going to name her Lily. Claire loved lilies." He gestured to the overgrown garden visible through the window. "That was supposed to be her garden. I can't bring myself to pull up the weeds." Sarah looked at the photo again, then at Michael. The weight of his loss hung in the air between them. "I should have called first," he said, running a hand through his wet hair. "I just wanted to drop off some groceries. There's formula, diapers, some clothes I guessed might fit." "Thank you," Sarah whispered, "for everything." "I don't know how to—" "Don't." Michael's voice was gentle but firm. "Just get some rest. Stay as long as you need. There's food in the kitchen, and I left some cash in an envelope by the coffee maker. I'll be at the Four Seasons if you need anything." He turned to leave, then paused. "Claire would have done the same, you know, probably better. She always knew the right thing to say. Sarah watched him go, his footsteps echoing through the empty house. In her arms, Emma's bottle was getting cold. Outside, the garden's weeds swayed in the storm wind, and somewhere in the darkness, lilies waited to bloom again. The next morning dawned surprisingly clear. Sunlight streaming through windows Sarah hadn't had the energy to cover the night before. Emma's happy babbling from the crib drew her from a sleep deeper than she'd known in months. "Good morning, sunshine," Sarah said, lifting her daughter. Emma was already wearing through the new sleeper, her endless energy undiminished by their recent hardships. "Should we see what else Mr. Thorne brought us?" The kitchen island was covered with bags, not just groceries, but everything they might need. Diapers in 3 sizes, changes of clothes for both of them, baby toys, bottles, even a collapsible stroller. An envelope beside the coffee maker held $500 in crisp 20s with a note, "For anything I forgot." Sarah's hands trembled as she made Emma's bottle, overwhelmed by the thoroughness of the help. Her phone, plugged into a charger she'd found last night, showed dozens of missed calls from the temp agency she'd been trying to work with. A text from Michael. "Stay as long as you need. I'll be back around 6 with dinner if that's okay." The day passed in a surreal haze. Sarah bathed Emma in the massive tub, did laundry in machines that probably cost more than her old car, and slowly allowed herself to believe this wasn't a dream she'd wake from. At exactly 6, the doorbell rang. Michael stood on the porch holding takeout bags, his suit exchanged for jeans and a casual button-down. "I wasn't sure what you liked," he said, holding up the bags, "so I got options." They ate at the kitchen island, Emma secured in a high chair that hadn't been there that morning. Michael watched with poorly concealed amusement as Sarah sampled everything from Thai to Italian to Mexican. "When was the last time you had a real meal?" he asked quietly. Sarah paused, a piece of pad thai halfway to her mouth. "Define real." Something that wasn't from a convenience store or shelter kitchen. Before Mark left, the words slipped out before she could stop them. "Emma's father," she added, seeing Michael's questioning look. He cleaned out our accounts, said he wasn't ready for fatherhood." Michael's expression darkened. "How long ago?" 3 months, 2 weeks, 4 days. Sarah smiled without humor. "But who's counting?" Emma threw a piece of steamed carrot, breaking the tension. It bounced off Michael's forehead, and to Sarah's surprise, he laughed. A real laugh that seemed to startle him as much as her. "She's got good aim," he said, wiping sauce from his face. "She's got opinions," Sarah corrected, trying to clean Emma's hands. "Strong ones. Like her mother, I'm guessing." Sarah met his eyes, finding no judgment there, just understanding, and something else, recognition maybe. 2 people who'd lost everything, finding unexpected common ground over takeout and flying vegetables. "I was a teacher," she said suddenly. 3rd grade. Had to leave when we lost the apartment. Can't exactly teach homeless." Michael nodded, processing this. "The school didn't help?" "They tried. But with budget cuts and my personal situation," she shrugged. "It's fine. We're managing." "Are you?" The question hung between them, gentle but unavoidable. Emma banged her sippy cup, oblivious to the weight of the moment. "No," Sarah admitted finally. "But we will. I just need to figure out our next step." Michael was quiet for a moment, feeding Emma another carrot. "Stay," he said finally. "Not forever, but until you get back on your feet. The house is too big for just me anyway." "I can't." "You can." His voice was firm. "3rd floor is all yours. I'm barely here during the day. Emma clearly enjoys redecorating my kitchen with vegetables. It makes sense." Sarah looked at her daughter, happily smearing food across her tray, then at Michael, this stranger who'd become something else, something not quite definable. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." Michael smiled, dodging another flying carrot. "Thank Emma. She's the one who sealed the deal with her excellent aim." For the first time in months, Sarah laughed. The sound echoed through the kitchen, chasing away the last of the ghosts, making room for something new to begin. The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Michael left early each morning, his Tesla gliding silently down the driveway as Sarah prepared Emma's breakfast. By day, she transformed his chaotic home office into something manageable, filing papers and organizing the digital chaos that seemed to define his work life. It wasn't charity. She'd insisted on that. "Let me earn my keep," she'd said on her 3rd morning. Emma balanced on her hip as she surveyed his desk's disaster zone. "I was class organizer 4 years running. This," she gestured at the piles of papers, "this is amateur hour." Michael had laughed, handed her his spare laptop and given her full access to his schedule. "Have at it," he'd said. "Just don't judge me too harshly." Now, a week into their arrangement, Sarah sat cross-legged on the office floor, surrounded by color-coded files. Emma played nearby with blocks Michael had brought home, occasionally toddling over to add her own special touch to the organization system. "Look at this," Sarah muttered, holding up a contract. "You almost signed away patent rights because it was buried in Appendix C." She added it to the urgent pile. "Gah," Emma declared, placing a drool-covered block on top of the document. "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "Daddy's lucky we're here." She froze, the word hanging in the air. Michael wasn't Emma's father. This wasn't their home. This was temporary, a kindness extended, nothing more. The front door opened, earlier than usual. Michael's footsteps, now familiar, approached the office. "I brought lunch," he called, "and maybe some news." Sarah looked up to find him in the doorway, holding takeout bags and watching Emma stack blocks with an expression she couldn't quite read. "She's been asking about patent law all morning," Sarah said, deflecting her earlier slip. "Very opinionated about intellectual property rights." Michael grinned, setting down the food. "Like mother, like daughter. Speaking of which," he pulled out his phone, showing her an email. "Remember that literacy program you mentioned? The one you wanted to start before life imploded?" Sarah supplied, reaching for Emma as she wobbled past. "What about it?" "My foundation's looking for new educational initiatives. Full funding, pilot program?" He trailed off, suddenly uncertain. "If you're interested." Sarah stared at him, Emma warm against her chest. "Are you offering me a job?" "Offering you your job back. Teaching. With better pay and creative control." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd come to recognize. "You'd be helping kids learn to read, just like you wanted." Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes. She blinked them away, focusing on Emma's soft hair against her cheek. "Why?" she whispered. Michael sat on the floor beside them, carefully moving a stack of files. "Because yesterday I heard you reading to Emma. The voices you did, the way you made the story come alive. That's a gift. One that shouldn't be wasted because some idiot walked away." Emma reached for him, and without hesitation Michael let her crawl into his lap. The sight made Sarah's heart twist. "I've been running from ghosts," he continued quietly, helping Emma stack blocks. "This house, that garden, even my work. It's all been about what I lost, but maybe," he looked at Emma, then Sarah, "maybe it's time to build something new instead." Sarah watched them together, this man who'd given them so much, and her daughter who'd somehow worked her way into his wounded heart. "Okay," she said finally, "but I'm still organizing your office. Seriously, Michael, your filing system is a crime against humanity." His laugh filled the room and Emma joined in, knocking over her block tower in excitement. As they cleaned up the scattered blocks together, Sarah realized something. For the first time since Mark left, she was thinking about the future instead of surviving the present. Small steps, she thought, watching Michael show Emma how to stack blocks higher. Sometimes that's how you rebuild a life, one small step at a time. It happened during dinner, 3 weeks into their stay. Michael had brought home pizza. Real pizza, he'd insisted, from that place in Pioneer Square that doesn't deliver, and Emma was discovering the joy of marinara sauce. "She's definitely going to need a bath," Sarah said, watching her daughter create abstract art with tomato sauce. "Maybe 2. Worth it," Michael replied, snapping a picture with his phone. He'd been doing that more lately, capturing small moments, creating new memories to fill the house's empty spaces. The doorbell rang. Michael frowned. "Are you expecting anyone?" Sarah shook her head, automatically pulling Emma closer. 3 weeks of safety hadn't erased her instincts. Through the front door's frosted glass, a familiar silhouette loomed. Sarah's blood ran cold. Mark. The name fell from her lips like a stone. Michael was already moving, positioning himself between them and the door. "Emma's father?" he asked quietly. Sarah nodded. The doorbell rang again, followed by pounding. "Sarah, I know you're in there. Your sister said—" "Jenny," Sarah whispered. "She must have, when I called to let her know we were safe." Michael's expression hardened. "Stay here." She watched him open the door, his tall frame blocking the entrance. Mark's voice carried clearly. "Who the hell are you? Where's Sarah? Listen, that's my kid in there." "The kid you abandoned?" Michael's voice was ice. "Along with their mother after stealing their savings? That's none of your business." "Actually, it is. This is my house and you're trespassing." Emma started crying, the tension in the room finally reaching her. Something in Sarah snapped. "You want to know what happened?" She stood, moving to the door with Emma on her hip. "You want the whole story, Mark?" His familiar face, once loved, now just a reminder of betrayal, stared back at her. "Sarah, baby, listen." "No, you listen." Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "After you left, I lost everything. My job, our apartment, my dignity. Do you know what it's like? Taking your baby to a shelter, watching her sleep in a carrier because you can't afford a crib." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "I was going to come back." "When? After which girlfriend? After I'd hit rock bottom? After Emma forgot who you were?" Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, but couldn't stop. "We slept in the rain, Mark. In the rain. Because of you. I can explain. She was 13 months old," Sarah continued, her voice rising. "She needed formula and diapers and love, and you just walked away, stole our savings, blocked my calls, left us with nothing." Emma whimpered, and Sarah instinctively shifted to comfort her. Michael's hand found her shoulder, steady and grounding. "The police would be interested in the theft," he said calmly. "I have excellent lawyers." Mark's face reddened. "Are you sleeping with him? Is that what this is? Get out." Sarah's voice was steel. "You lost the right to ask about my life when you walked away from yours. Emma deserves better than a father who abandons her." "I have rights." "You have nothing," Michael cut in, "except about 30 seconds to leave my property before I call the police. Your choice." They watched him leave, his car speeding away into the darkness. Sarah's legs finally gave out, and Michael caught her, guiding her to the stairs. Emma clung to them both, marinara-covered hands leaving prints on their clothes. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered. "I'm so sorry. He'll probably be back. I should go." "No," Michael's voice was firm. "This is your home now for as long as you want it. He comes back, we handle it. Together." Sarah looked up at him through tears, seeing the truth in his eyes. This man who'd given them shelter had become something more, a protector, a friend, a partner in their healing. "Thank you," she managed. Michael smiled, wiping sauce from Emma's cheek. "Thank you for trusting me, both of you." They sat there on the stairs, a tableau of sauce-stained clothes and tear-streaked faces, somehow stronger together than apart. Outside, rain began to fall. The same rain that had brought them to this house, this moment, this new beginning. Monday morning dawned with unexpected sunshine. Sarah sat in Michael's office, reviewing the literacy program proposal for the 3rd time. Emma napped upstairs, her morning energy finally exhausted from chasing sunbeams across the hardwood floors. "The budget needs work," Sarah muttered, making notes. "Can't expect teachers to supply their own materials." The door creaked open, and Michael appeared with 2 coffee cups. "Still at it. Someone has to make this actually work," she replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Your foundation team has great ideas, but they've never been in a classroom. That's why I need you." Michael settled into his chair, watching her mark up the document. "You know what works, what doesn't, what kids actually need." Sarah looked up, catching something in his tone. "What's really on your mind?" He smiled slightly. "Caught. That obvious? You brought me coffee with the exact right amount of cream. You want something." Michael laughed, then sobered. "I've been thinking about what happened with Mark, about security, stability." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'd like to offer you a permanent position, Director of Educational Initiatives for the Thorn Foundation." Sarah's pen stilled. "What?" "Full benefits, competitive salary, complete control over the literacy program, and any other educational projects you want to develop." He leaned forward, earnest. "You'd be perfect for it, Sarah. You understand both worlds, the classroom and the administrative side." Sarah set down her pen. "That's not entry-level, Michael. People will talk. Let them. You're qualified. More importantly, you care. That's rare in this world. And this has nothing to do with Emma and me living here." Michael met her gaze steadily. "It has everything to do with who you are, the way you organize chaos, how you see problems and solve them, your experience teaching, your determination to help others, even when you needed help yourself." Sarah looked down at the proposal, her notes filling the margins. Ideas she'd carried for years, finally having a chance to become real. "What about Emma? On-site daycare for all employees." "Another initiative I'm planning." Michael smiled. "She's already helping with quality control." Sarah thought about the past month, the safety they'd found here, the way Michael's house had slowly transformed from a mausoleum of grief into a home filled with Emma's laughter. The garden, where new plants were starting to grow alongside Claire's old lilies. "I can't stay here if I take the job," she said finally. "It wouldn't be appropriate." "I know." Michael's voice was gentle. "I've already talked to my realtor. There's a great apartment complex near the office. 3 bedrooms, secure building, excellent school district. The foundation can help with the deposit. You've thought of everything. I try. He handed her a folder. The official offer. Take your time. Think it over. Sarah opened the folder, her eyes widening at the salary figure. This is what you're worth. Michael stood, heading for the door. And Sarah, whatever you decide about the job, this is still your home for as long as you need it. No strings attached. She watched him leave, the folder heavy in her hands. Through the window she could see the garden where Emma had taken her first steps last week. Michael had captured it on video. One more memory added to the new ones filling this house. Upstairs, Emma stirred through the baby monitor. Sarah traced the job offer's letterhead, thinking about second chances and new beginnings. Sometimes help came with strings attached, but sometimes, rarely, it came from a place of genuine belief in what could be. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her pen and began to read the offer in detail. Whatever she decided, it would be on her terms, for herself, for Emma, for the future they both deserved. Sarah signed the contract on a Thursday morning. Michael's office, soon to be her former home, was bathed in early sunlight, catching dust motes that danced around them like confetti. Initial here and here, the HR representative said, pointing to marked lines. Full benefits start immediately. The foundation's very progressive about that. Emma played in her portable playpen nearby, occasionally offering commentary in her developing language. Michael stood by the window, pretending to check emails, while actually watching their reflection in the glass. And done. Sarah set down the pen, flexing her fingers. Director of Educational Initiatives. The title still felt surreal. Welcome aboard, Michael said, finally turning. Your office is ready whenever you are. The HR rep gathered the papers, leaving them alone with Emma's babbling as background music. So, Sarah said, about the apartment. Keys are here. Michael pulled out an envelope. I had the security system updated last week. It's a good building. The hesitation in his voice made Sarah look up sharply. What aren't you telling me? He shifted, uncomfortable. It's where Claire and I lived before. A pause. Not the same unit, different floor, but Michael, I know. I should have said something. He ran a hand through his hair. But it's the best building in the school district, and the security is top-notch, and it's perfect, Sarah interrupted. Really, thank you. Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. This wasn't just about an apartment or a job. It was about trust, about believing in new beginnings while honoring what came before. The movers are coming Saturday, Michael continued, visibly relieved. Though it's not like you have much to move, Sarah laughed. Just everything you've bought us this past month. Emma's stuff, mostly. Right, because that professional wardrobe in my closet just materialized. Michael grinned, unrepentant. Company dress code. Very strict about that. Emma chose that moment to pull herself up on the playpen's edge, bouncing excitedly. Up! Up! Without hesitation, Michael scooped her up, settling her on his hip with practiced ease. Sarah watched them, her heart twisting. This had become so natural. Their little routine, their shared spaces, their way of moving around each other like a family. We'll still see you, she said quietly. It's not goodbye. I know. Michael tickled Emma's belly, earning a squeal. Besides, who else is going to appreciate my terrible dad jokes? They're pretty bad. They're classic. Emma patted his face, demanding attention. In that moment, Sarah saw their future clearly, not as a traditional family, perhaps, but as something equally precious. A chosen family built on trust and second chances. Sunday dinners, she said suddenly. Here, every week. Non-negotiable. Michael's smile lit up his face. Deal. But I'm cooking. God, no. I've seen you burn water. That was one time. They laughed together, the sound echoing through the office that had become so much more than just a workspace. Outside, spring was painting the garden in new colors, Claire's lilies reaching toward the sun alongside fresh plantings. Sarah picked up the envelope with her new keys, feeling the weight of this moment. Not an ending, but a transition, a step forward into something new, carrying the best parts of what they'd built here with them. Ready for our next adventure, sweet girl? She asked Emma, who was still contentedly perched in Michael's arms. Emma's response was a happy gurgle, reaching one hand toward each of them, and in that gesture, Sarah saw everything they needed to know about rebuilding lives and healing hearts. Sometimes it took a village, even if that village started with just 3 people in a too-big house on a rainy night. The garden bloomed in waves of color, Claire's lilies now surrounded by new growth Sarah and Michael had planted together. Emma toddled between the flower beds, her green romper making her look like a wandering sprout. "Careful by the roses," Sarah called, but Michael was already there, his hands hovering near Emma as she navigated the stone path. It had been 2 weeks since they'd moved into the apartment, 2 weeks of adjusting to new spaces and routines. 2 weeks of Emma asking for Mikul at bedtime, 2 weeks of Sarah learning to sleep without the comfort of knowing he was just downstairs. Today marked their second Sunday dinner, though they'd seen each other almost daily at the foundation. Sarah watched as Michael showed Emma a butterfly, his voice carrying across the garden as he explained the colors to her attentive face. "See the orange wings? Just like your favorite book." Sarah turned back to the grill, checking the vegetables. She'd insisted on cooking today, refusing to subject them to another of Michael's culinary experiments. Last week's attempt at paella had been memorable. "Sarah," Michael's urgent whisper cut through her thoughts. "Quick!" She spun around to see Emma standing unassisted in the middle of the path, her little face scrunched in concentration. "The camera," Michael mouthed, not daring to move. Sarah fumbled for her phone, hands shaking as she pressed record. Emma swayed slightly, then lifted one foot. "Come on, sweet girl," Sarah breathed. "You can do it." One step, wobble, another step. Michael was crouched a few feet away, arms outstretched, his face a mix of terror and joy that probably matched Sarah's own. 3 steps, 4. "That's it, Emma!" Sarah couldn't contain her whisper. "Go to Michael." 5 steps, 6, 7. Emma reached Michael's arms and collapsed into them, giggling as he scooped her up and spun her around. "Did you see that?" he asked Sarah, his eyes bright. 7 steps, she's a genius." Sarah was already rushing over, the grill forgotten. "My brilliant girl." She peppered Emma's face with kisses while Michael held them both, their shared joy creating a bubble of perfect happiness in the Sunday afternoon light. "We should celebrate," Michael declared. "I could make no," Sarah laughed, "no cooking experiments. This is a milestone worth preserving with edible food." Emma squirmed to be let down, clearly pleased with her newfound mobility. They watched her take another few tentative steps before sitting down hard on her bottom. "I got it all on video," Sarah said softly. "Her first real steps." Michael nodded, something flickering across his face. "Claire always said she wanted to record everything, every first." Instead of the usual pain, his voice held a gentle nostalgia. Sarah touched his arm lightly. "She'd be happy, I think. Seeing her garden full of life again, hearing a baby laugh here." "Yeah," Michael smiled, watching Emma scoot toward a particularly interesting flower. She would be. The moment stretched between them, comfortable and bittersweet. Then Emma pulled herself up using a flower box and took another determined step. "The grill," Sarah suddenly remembered, running to rescue their dinner. Michael's laugh followed her, mixed with Emma's delighted squeals as she discovered her new walking skills could take her to previously unexplored territory. Later, as they ate slightly charred but still edible vegetables and grilled chicken, Emma dozed in her high chair, exhausted from her adventures. Sarah sent the video to her sister Jenny, then hesitated. "Do you want a copy?" she asked Michael. "Of the video?" He looked at Emma, then back at Sarah. "I'd like that, for the album." They both knew which album he meant. The one that had once told only stories of loss, now slowly filling with new memories. First steps in a garden where hope bloomed alongside grief, creating something beautiful in the spaces between. The Foundation's conference room felt too small for the tension it contained. Sarah stood at the podium, her presentation on the literacy program's pilot results displayed behind her. The board members, all suits and serious expressions, watched with varying degrees of interest. "In just 3 months," Sarah continued, forcing steadiness into her voice, "we've seen a 30% improvement in reading comprehension scores across participating schools. The teacher feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, particularly regarding the individualized learning materials and the cost," a board member interrupted. "These numbers seem ambitious." "The cost of illiteracy to our community is far greater," Sarah countered, clicking to her next slide. "Every dollar invested in early literacy saves." "We understand the social impact, Ms. Collins." Another interruption. "But there are questions about your qualifications for this position." There it was, the whispers she'd been hearing for weeks, finally spoken aloud. Sarah felt Michael stiffen at the back of the room. "My qualifications?" She kept her voice level. 7 years of classroom experience? My master's in education? Or are we discussing something else entirely? The room shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the rumors. The homeless teacher Michael had taken in, given a job, set up in Claire's old building. The suspicious timing, the assumed implications. Perhaps we should take a break, someone suggested. No. Sarah straightened her spine. Let's address this directly. Yes, Michael Thorne helped me when I was homeless. Yes, he offered me this position. And yes, I'm aware of how that looks. She clicked to her final slide, pictures of children reading, their faces bright with achievement. But these results, the 30% improvement, the waiting list of schools wanting to join the program, that's all me, my experience, my curriculum design, my understanding of what these kids need because I've been in those classrooms. The room was silent now, every eye on her. I'm not asking you to like how I got here. I'm asking you to look at what I've done with the opportunity. These kids don't care about office politics or rumors. They care that someone finally figured out how to help them learn. From the back of the room, Michael cleared his throat. I believe the results speak for themselves, unless anyone has questions about the actual program. The silence stretched. Then the board chairman nodded slowly. Full funding approved for Phase 2, he announced. Good work, Ms. Collins. Later in her office, Sarah finally let her hands shake. Michael appeared in her doorway with coffee. You know, he said casually, I thought I was the one who gave you a chance. Turns out you gave me one instead. Sarah looked up. What do you mean? I was drowning in guilt and grief, using charity as a shield. You and Emma, you showed me how to live again, how to trust. He set down her coffee. The board saw it today, what I saw that night in the rain. Someone who never stops fighting for what matters. They still think we're sleeping together, Sarah said wryly. Let them. We know the truth. Which is? Michael smiled. That some things are worth more than rumors, like watching Emma take her first steps, like helping kids learn to read, like finding family in unexpected places. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. When did you get so wise? Must be all those children's books you make me read. Very philosophical, that cat in the hat. They laughed together, the tension of the day dissolving. Outside her office, the foundation hummed with activity, teachers being trained, materials being prepared, lives being changed one page at a time. Sunday dinner still on? Michael asked, heading for the door. Always, Sarah replied. But I'm cooking. 1 bad paella, and you never let me forget it. 3 bad paellas, Michael. 3. His mock-offended expression carried her through the rest of the day. Some pain was worth growing through, she realized, especially when you didn't have to grow alone. And this, Sarah said, lifting Emma onto her hip, is our new home. She unlocked the door to apartment 1424, the numbers a coincidence that hadn't escaped her notice. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating hardwood floors and fresh paint. Their few belongings, mostly Emma's things and Sarah's newly acquired professional wardrobe, had been carefully arranged by the movers. Michael had insisted on hiring the best, though Sarah suspected he'd overseen the setup himself while she was at work. Emma squirmed to be put down, immediately toddling toward the windows. Pretty, she declared, pressing tiny hands against the glass. That's right, baby. Pretty view. Sarah followed, taking in the Seattle skyline. 14 floors up, the city spread out before them like a promise. The apartment was perfect. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, even a small balcony garden where Sarah had already planned to grow herbs. Security was state-of-the-art. The doorman knew them by name, and the building's daycare center was just 2 floors down. Yet something felt off. Sarah wandered through the rooms, noting Michael's thoughtful touches. Emma's nursery was exactly how they'd set it up at his house, down to the placement of her favorite stuffed animals. The kitchen contained all their preferred brands. Even Sarah's bedroom mimicked the guest room she'd first slept in, though with subtle differences. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Special delivery, Michael called through the door. Sarah opened it to find him juggling several bags of takeout. I thought you had meetings all afternoon. Rescheduled. He navigated past her to the kitchen. Couldn't let your first night here pass without dinner. Emma ran to him, arms raised. Up. Me cool up. He scooped her up one-handed, still arranging containers with the other. I got all your favorites, even that spicy Thai curry you pretend not to love. Sarah watched them together, her heart aching. This was right, having their own space, maintaining appropriate boundaries. So why did it feel like something was missing? You okay? Michael asked, noticing her expression. Just, she gestured vaguely. It's perfect. Too perfect, maybe. He set Emma in her high chair, his movements careful. Too much? I can take some things back. No, it's not that. Sarah started unpacking food, buying time to find the right words. It's like we're playing house. Everything's arranged just so, but it doesn't feel quite real. Michael was quiet for a moment, helping Emma with her noodles. I get that, he finally said. After Claire, the new house felt like a movie set. Perfect rooms, perfect furniture, no soul. How did you make it feel real? His eyes met hers. You did. You and Emma. You brought life back into those empty spaces. Sarah felt tears threaten. And now we're leaving those spaces empty again. No. Michael's voice was firm. Now you're building your own space, making your own home. It's supposed to feel strange at first. That's how you know it's real change, not just playing pretend. Emma threw a noodle, breaking the moment. They both laughed, the tension easing. Besides, Michael added, wiping sauce from Emma's chin, you're not that far away. Sunday dinners, remember? And you'll visit? Try keeping me away. Someone has to teach Emma questionable cooking skills. Sarah smiled, watching him make airplane noises with Emma's spoon. This was right, she reminded herself. New beginnings sometimes meant letting go of comfortable patterns to create better ones. Now, Michael said, pulling out one last container, I brought dessert. Fair warning, I tried to make Claire's lemon bars. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Tried? They're more like lemon rocks. But the attempt was heartfelt. They laughed together, the apartment's perfect spaces beginning to fill with the messy reality of their unique family. Outside, the sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in colors that promised tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new ways to define what home really meant. The two-candle flickered atop a cake that had somehow survived Michael's baking attempt. Emma sat in her high chair, eyes wide with wonder at the small flame, while guests filled Michael's backyard with cheerful chatter. Make a wish, sweet girl, Sarah whispered, positioning herself for photos. Emma looked confused by the instruction, but delighted by the attention. Jenny, Sarah's sister, stood ready with her phone to capture the moment. Michael hovered nearby, a stack of plates in his hands, and barely contained emotion on his face. Remember last year? Sarah asked softly, catching his eye. Of course he did. Emma's first birthday had been just them, in this same garden, with a store-bought cupcake and tentative hopes. Now watching Emma beam at her guests, teachers from the foundation, neighbors, daycare friends, Michael could hardly believe how much had changed. Bah! Emma declared, reaching for the cake. Blow, sweetheart, Sarah demonstrated. Like this! Emma's attempt sent spittle everywhere but the candle. Michael stepped in, a gentle puff extinguishing the flame as everyone cheered. That's my goddaughter, Jenny called out, snapping pictures. Already knows how to delegate. The afternoon unfolded in a blur of presents, games, and conversation. Emma toddled between guests, showing off her walking skills and accepting admiration for her party dress. Sarah mingled effortlessly, every inch the confident professional she'd become. You did good, you know. Michael turned to find Jenny beside him, watching Sarah help Emma unwrap a gift. Sarah did it all herself, he replied automatically. Jenny snorted. Right. Because homeless single mothers regularly become education directors and raise happy toddlers all on their own. Jenny, relax. She patted his arm. I'm not accusing you of anything. Just saying, you helped create this. It's okay to be proud. Michael watched as Emma abandoned her presents to toddle toward him, arms raised in their familiar request. He lifted her automatically, settling her on his hip. Me cool cake, she demanded, patting his cheek with sticky fingers. More cake? He pretended to consider. What does Mommy say? Emma's face scrunched in thought. Peas. Well, since you asked so nicely. Sarah appeared with a small plate. Already one step ahead of you both. They stood together, watching Emma demolish her second piece of cake, their unlikely family unit complete in its own way. Around them, the garden bloomed with late summer flowers. Claire's lilies now harmoniously blended with new plantings, creating something both honoring the past and celebrating the present. Present time, Jenny announced, hefting a large gift bag. The pile of presents seemed endless. Books for their nightly reading ritual, educational toys from the foundation staff, a tiny lab coat with "Future Scientist" embroidered on the pocket, making Sarah laugh and squeeze Jenny's hand. Finally, Michael stepped forward with a small box. It's not much, he said quietly. Just something to remember this by. Inside lay a silver frame, The photo showed Emma taking her first steps in the garden, caught mid-laugh as she reached for Michael while Sarah recorded the moment. Below it, an inscription read, "Some steps change everything." Sarah traced the words, tears threatening. "Michael, there's something else," he said quickly. Actually 2 things." He produced an envelope, then another box. The envelope contained papers, legal documents. I'm not trying to—" He took a deep breath. "It's trust paperwork for Emma's education, and—" He handed over the box. Inside lay a key. "For the house," Michael explained. "Not to move back, just so you always have a home here, both of you." The party guests had gone quietly respectful, watching this moment unfold. Emma, oblivious to the emotion around her, continued eating cake. Sarah looked at the key, then at Michael. "You're our family too, you know," she said softly. "Have been since that first night." "I know," he smiled, watching Emma. "Some steps change everything." Later, as guests departed and Emma dozed in her portable playpen, Sarah and Michael sat in the garden. The setting sun painted the sky in colors remarkably similar to the night they'd first met. "Thank you," Sarah said simply. Michael understood she meant more than just the party. "Thank you for letting me be part of this." They sat in comfortable silence, watching darkness settle over their shared garden, this space where grief and hope had intertwined to create something new and beautiful. Emma stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Her second year would begin here, in this garden where she'd taken her first steps. And while her path forward would be her own to choose, she would always have this foundation, built on trust, strengthened by love, and nurtured by 2 people who'd learned that family could be found in life's most unexpected storms. 6 months later, the community garden bloomed with early spring flowers. Sarah knelt in the soft earth, showing Emma how to plant marigold seeds. "Gentle, sweet girl," she guided Emma's small hands, "just like we practiced." Emma, now firmly in her terrible 2s, concentrated with surprising care. "Like this, Mommy." "Perfect, baby." Michael watched from the garden bench, coffee cups steaming beside him. Sunday dinners had evolved into Sunday gardening sessions, weather permitting. The plot they tended together had become something of a local attraction. The tech millionaire, the education director, and the toddler growing vegetables alongside Claire's original flowers. "Me cool help," Emma called, waving a seed packet with dangerous enthusiasm. "Coming, princess." He joined them in the dirt, accepting the scattered seeds with appropriate gravity. "Where should these go?" Sarah pointed to a prepared space. "Next to the tomatoes, though if your cooking continues to improve, we might need more herbs instead." "Hey, last week's lasagna was edible." "Barely." Their laughter mingled with birdsong and distant city noise. Emma patted the soil over her seeds, chattering about the flowers they would become. The past months had settled them into a rhythm uniquely their own. Sarah's literacy program was expanding to 3 more states. Michael had started dating again, tentatively with Sarah's gentle encouragement. Emma split her time between the foundation's daycare and the apartment, with frequent visits to what she still called Me Cool's house. They weren't a traditional family, but watching Emma plant seeds for tomorrow's flowers, helping her believe in things not yet visible, Sarah knew they were exactly what each of them needed. "More seeds?" Emma asked hopefully. "Tomorrow, sweet girl." Sarah brushed dirt from her daughter's cheeks. "These need time to grow." "How long?" Michael smiled, remembering similar questions about grief and healing. "As long as they need, but we'll be here to watch them bloom." Emma considered this, then nodded sagely. "Okay. Snack now." They laughed, gathering their gardening tools. Above them, cherry blossoms scattered pink petals across the garden, where Claire's lilies would soon bloom again. Life, Sarah had learned, was like their garden, a constant cycle of endings and beginnings, loss and growth, all creating something beautiful in their own time. As they headed inside for snacks and stories, Sarah paused to look back at their freshly planted seeds. Somewhere beneath the soil, new life was stirring, reaching toward tomorrow's light. Just like them, growing together,